Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mego Museum's Vintage Mego. My name is Brian, your host, and what is going to be our final show of the year, I thought we would talk about a Mego superhero line that did not get released in the US. It's actually the only Mego superhero toy line that did not get released in the US, the Magnetic Superheroes. Now, when I make the claim that they didn't get released, I'm not talking about foreign variants or regional heroes that we didn't get in the US, like Jet Jungle. No, I mean an actual toy line based on the world's greatest superheroes. This never happened before, and the story as to the why is actually quite an enjoyable yarn. To give you the brief backstory, in 1976, Mego struck deals in Japan with Takara to license several toys and package them under the Micronauts brand worldwide. Among them was a magnetic toy called Jeeg, who was retooled into Force Commander and Baron Karza by Mego for the rest of the world. Now, for information on those characters, I would refer to the video I did last year that basically gives you much more of a detailed history. Like any good toy company, if Mego had something that worked, they would spend some time finding ways to extrapolate on the concept in any manner. There were things such as Magnanimals, aimed at the preschool set. The Disney characters were also produced as magnetic figures. And most famously, Mego pitched magnetic versions of the robots from the Black Hole. US buyers did not bite on the Black Hole, which is weird because the robots are the best part, but I digress. However, thanks to the unquenchable demand for cool robot toys in Italy, the figures did manage to see production there. Also, the Micronauts were a massive deal in Italy, and they truly embraced that magnetic concept, and I'll get into that a little while later. The country is awash in different iterations. It's absolutely no surprise that Mego wouldn't try to apply this popular toy item to their most popular license, the evergreen World's Greatest Superheroes. Perhaps you've heard of it. In the late 70s, Mego was really keen to protect this action figure license from competitors like Remco, who had found a loophole in the late 1970s with Energized Spider-Man, and I also did a video on that you can find here. So Mego began several different figure formats outside of the 8-inch World's Greatest Superheroes, which really had completely stopped developing anything new around 1978. So particularly in 78 and 79, Mego expanded the superheroes into a very impressive line of 12-inch superheroes, a gorgeous line of 1/12 scale die-cast figures that actually said collector's item on the packaging, the ill-fated Elastic Heroes brand, we'll get into that another day, and also they retooled the comic action heroes into the Pocket Superheroes line. I'm certain that the magnetic superheroes in the Mego R&D just seemed like a slam dunk. You combine a popular toy item with the recognizable faces of the Justice League, and you've got something you can sell. Mego began to work developing the line and the concept, and much like the Elastic Heroes, one has to wonder if anyone at Mego read comics when they chose these characters.
Hi, I'm Iron Man. For Marvel Comics, you made a toy of me? Literally, a guy in a cool robot suit, and I fight other guys in, you guessed it, cool robot suits. Seems like a match made in heaven, Mego.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys validate parking?
The character selection for the first wave was the big four of the late 70s for Mego. Representing DC Comics, you got Batman and Superman, and representing Marvel, you got Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk. With all the TV and movie exposure these guys had, these were the core figures that constantly turned. You can see a move towards the big four in things like the first wave of Elastic Heroes, the aforementioned die-cast heroes, and the final wave of Pocket Superheroes. You may notice too that Mego was starting to create a more linear look to the product packaging, utilizing the same Neal Adams artwork representing each character across multiple toy lines. Now, according to this Mark's UK catalog that was unearthed by collector Eddie Burst, The Magnetic Superheroes' original designs were to have them have the flying fists of their Micronaut companions. However, somewhere in production, this got left out. I would imagine it was a cost issue more than anything. The final figures do look very similar to these prototypes, save for their hands being firmly in place. The 5 magnetic joints on each figure allow you to mix and match heads and limbs and torsos to create an ultimate superhero mashup, Cronenbergian body horror, or just use some other Micronauts toys and create this super warrior of your own creation. I admit it's an odd concept when you think about it, but when did logic ever get in the way of a fun toy? Now, in Italy, the figures were popular enough they actually enjoyed 2 different packaging variations. First off, there were these gorgeous window boxes, and I'm going to assume they were early as they're harder to find than the cards, which are also no picnic. I've been collecting for a long time, and I have come up with 3 of these. The Hulk is always the easiest one to find. As far as I can tell, the boxes were exclusive to Italy. However, it's a slightly different story with the card backs, as they were offered in France, as you can see by this very rare Pin Toys Batman. And just recently, Will, a Australian collector I know, who goes by the name of Tall Toys Kids, did manage to pick up a Magnetic Hulk in Australia, and I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that was distributed by Kroner, who were being very, very aggressive with superhero toys in Australia in the late 1970s and early 80s. There's also a possibility these were distributed in Germany, as I have found some at flea markets, but given their proximity to Italy, it's really difficult to tell. Now, this is the original proof card for the Magna Heroes in the US. I got this at Hakes Americana about 20 years ago for a very agreeable price. As you can see, the US name would have been Magna Heroes, except even on the card it says Magno Power right below it. The Hulk is different than the actual release, as you can see here. The back of the packaging also has a few minor changes to it. So you might be asking yourself, how did a toy buyer not see the potential in this? Even though it makes no sense, these would have sold well. The answer to that is actually twofold. And the first one is probably the most important, and that is oversaturation of the market. You see, in 1979, 1 year before these got proposed, Mego had set its sights on a hostile takeover of another toy company, the Minnesota-based Tonka. Mego heavily invested in licensed items, which are hit or miss, whereas Tonka had something that was something of an evergreen item, so this made good sense financially. During a period between December of 1978 and the spring of 79, Mego purchased over 300,000 shares of Tonka, equivalent to about 20% of its voting stock. Tonka, not interested in that takeover, sued Mego under antitrust and security laws, and basically won. What's that got to do with superheroes, you ask? Well, in order to raise that cash, Mego dumped a ton of superhero merchandise in 1979 at low prices. In fact, by the end of that fiscal year, World's Greatest Superhero merchandise totaled 25% of sales. To put that into context, in 1976, when the superheroes were riding high, they only equated to 17% of sales. This resulted in superhero sales tanking for the remainder of Mego's lifespan. It's actually mentioned in a company report. And when Robin interviewed the late Neil Cublin, former VP of R&D for Mego, this is what he had to say. Interestingly enough, by that time, superheroes had lost their bloom, so to speak. They were not doing well. It was kind of an interim period. In 79, which was a big year for us, the profit picture wasn't so great, so we unloaded a whole load of superheroes into the market, which really hurt us for a couple of years. It was the only basic line we had. The other factor may be that the Micronauts were sort of on their way out. If this had been introduced in, say, 77 or 78, it would have been a slam dunk. But in 1980, with superheroes oversaturated and Micronauts not moving like they used to, It's not a shock these didn't make it to the United States. It also explains why a lot of the superhero stuff made after 1980 is so difficult to find. I have a tremendous deal of affection for the Mego Magnetic line, everything from the plastic capes to the wonderful sculpts. I really feel it is highly underrated, and it's underrated because it's obscure, not because it isn't a cool toy line. It is actually Mego firing on all cylinders. I love the sculpts, I love the concepts, I love the packaging, and I wish it could have gotten a bigger release. That's all the time I have for Vintage Mego this week. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I just wanted to say, as this is the time of the year, thank you for an absolutely wonderful 2023. I've really appreciated all the encouragement, the comments, the support, the popularity of the magazine, and other things. It's been a very rewarding year, and your voices have helped me drown out some other ones. So I truly appreciate the support, and I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season, Christmas, and New Year's. Cheers.